I bet you can't guess my favorite color. That's right, you won't be able to because I'm an adult and I'm not 5 years old, so I don't have a favorite color. But if I did have to pick one, it would probably be burgundy. Or maybe maroon. I'm honestly not sure what the difference is between those two colors. But it's probably one of those. It's Halloween 2020, and I see you're interested in watching Mother's Day. Here's what you need to know about the movie. This movie stars Deborah Luce, Tiana Pierce, Nancy Hendrickson, Frederick Coffin, credited as Holden McGuire, Michael McCleary, credited as Billy Ray McQuaid, and Beatrice Pons, credited as Rose Ross. Three friends reunite for an annual weekend adventure, but things take a turn for the worse when they enter deep Barrens wilderness. Now their trip becomes a fight to escape the horrors of a psychotic family that wants to terrorize the trio. Will they be able to escape from being Mother's playthings, or will Mother have her way? This movie does a good job at establishing the characters. It shows plenty of flashbacks and pictures of when they were in college together, so we really get to know who the characters are and who they were. We also get to see where they're at since college and what their lives have become since they grew apart. The film also does a really good job at showing exactly how crazy the antagonists are. They're extremely unpredictable, not super intelligent, and completely psychotic. And the victims are put in intense situations that are very brutal and will make you extremely uncomfortable. The acting in this film is also pretty decent. You fear for the girls' lives, are afraid of the villains, and it's all based in realism, and they do a good job at keeping it that way to make things even scarier. As for the negatives of this movie, all these are my own personal opinion, but I think the film was a little too brutal. It kind of contrasted poorly with the comedic elements. It reminded me a little bit of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I think it would have worked better if they would have went the route of maybe some of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels by making the movie a little more cartoonish and maybe a little more campy. It tries to be funny in some regards, but with all the brutality, it just lands flat. Also, I felt like the movie was a little too slow, and I wasn't super fond of the ending. So I went into this movie knowing that it was distributed by Troma and that one of the co-creators of Troma and creator of The Toxic Avenger, Lloyd Kaufman, was associated with the movie. In fact, his brother directed the movie. So I thought it was going to be a lot more cartoonish and colorful and fun like a lot of the other Troma movies. And instead it was just really dark and brutal. And that's not what I was expecting at all. And I think because of my comparison to the other Troma films, it made me enjoy the movie a lot less than I normally would have. A loose remake to Mother's Day was released in 2010, and Troma also distributed a movie called Father's Day in 2011. Other than the fact that both movies are similar in being brutal, there's no tie-ins involved at all between the two films. This movie does have its fair share of entertaining moments, particularly the way the boys interact with their mother and the movie's climax. But unfortunately, to me, the brutal moments really take away from the entertainment value of this movie. They're just too dark and cringy, and I just didn't enjoy them very much at all. I think if I wanted to watch something similar to this movie, I would much rather watch one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels, or maybe a later Troma release instead. On to the fun facts. IMDb lists this as a comedy horror thriller, but I don't think that should be considered a comedy movie at all. It has its moments of comedy, but overall it's way too dark to be a comedic movie. The house used to film the movie had been abandoned for 15 years prior to filming, after the original owner was murdered inside the house. When this film was released in Germany, they actually cut out 14 minutes of the film to avoid giving it an X rating. This movie was banned in the UK until 2015, most likely due to its dark nature and intense scenes of violence. Lloyd Kaufman, founder of Troma and associate producer of this movie, was actually asked to be in the film by his brother, who was the director. He refused, which is kind of ironic since he now distributes the movie under the Troma name. This film actually shares a lot of filming locations that were used in Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2. In one of the earlier scenes of this movie, there's actually a part where there's blood splattering across the interior of the car before the murder takes place. And the last fun fact about this film is, it doesn't even take place on Mother's Day. So if you're interested in adding a little bit of Troma and a little bit of trauma to your Halloween this year, then you should rent a copy of Mother's Day from Hollywood Nick's Videorama. Isn't that right, Hollywood Nick? Who's in charge of the lighting here, because I look terrible?